everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola and today I'm talking about the 2023 reading projects I should have absolutely told you about. So 2023 was the year of reading projects for me. I was constantly looking for little boosts to get me to read as many books as possible. And I don't know what it is with me. I don't know if anyone else has this. Please let me know if you do. But like when I have little time to do something, I just want to do it all the freaking time. And that was me for like February, for example. I had this reading project called A Book a Day, and I was supposed to read one book for every day of February because I had a lot of novellas and I had a lot of books under 200 pages that I wanted to get to, both on my Kindle and on my Libro FM account. If you don't know, I don't think I've ever talked about this. I am on their bookseller program and it is fantastic. I constantly get books from them. I'm not sponsored at all, but I will leave a link to them down below. You get to support indie bookstores, which is phenomenal. So spoiler alert, I did not read 28 books. I instead read 17, so a little more than half, and they were all pretty fantastic, so I'm really satisfied with how that went. I don't know what made me lose my streak because I was hitting that one book a day count for like 10 days. I think it was the fact that I was reading picture books back to back and I was like, okay, great, I'm ahead of myself. I've read 3 books in one day. This is perfect. And then I just didn't continue on with the challenge until I had like 7 days left, and by then it was too much to ask for to read 2 books a day or however behind I fell. I read 3 picture books, 1 children's book, and 1 YA. The rest were adult. Most of them were like romance / erotica, with the exception of Why God is a Woman, which is a novel in verse, and it's about this fantastical island where women are in charge, like it's a matriarchy instead of the patriarchy, and they are the ones that are like harassing men on the street and whistling. It is one of the very few books that gets what patriarchy does and just how oppressive and dangerous it is. And then 2 other books that I want to recommend are Crimes of Passion by Jack Harban. This was once an Audible original. It is now available as an ebook, but I got it as an audiobook. Shout out to Jack Harban for giving it to me. Crimes of Passion is a love story about 2 podcasters who have very different approaches to their craft. They're both true crime podcasters and they come together, dissect a new case, and it's about how different they are, and it's about their similarities, and it's about them falling in love, and it's also quite steamy. Highly recommend for those of you who love short and steamy books like me. And then the other book that I highly recommend is also adult romance. It's Birthday Shot by Rilsey Adams. Those of you who have been with me for quite some time now know that I absolutely adore Rilsey Adams. I think this is one of my favorite Rilsey Adams that I've read so far. And it's about Shay, who is about to turn 30, and she's always had a thing for her older brother's best friend. His name is Coffee. It is so freaking good. It is so steamy. I think this is the steamiest book by Rilsey Adams that I've read, even though all of her books are super steamy. But this one by far has my favorite steamy interactions. I don't know how much I can say before like YouTube flags it or does whatever, but it is so freaking steamy. It is so HORNY. It is so freaking good. It is delicious. I really love Coffee and Shay's chemistry, their communication. I love that they're sort of in this bubble of lust and trying to figure out where they go on from there. Oh, it's great. Please, if you haven't read a Rilsey Adams book, let it be this one. My second reading project was the Plus Size Readathon. This one took place in July, and I think it was all of July. This one was hosted by Lexi.Reads, Beauty_by DeBros, and Sash Reads on Instagram. There were 5 prompts: Partners in Crime, a book where the love interest has major book partner energy. Number 2, We Need a Big Boy, read a book where a plus-size male character finds love. Number 3, Big Baddies Club. Continue a series that you've started or start a new series that you've been meaning to get to. Fat does not mean ugly. Read a book where the plus size main character has an unshakable love for her body. And number 5, Hidden Gems. Read a book from an author you've never read from before. So I had a very ambitious TBR, not as ambitious if you consider that it was supposed to take place during the entirety of the month, but it was ambitious in the sense that I was not really feeling books at the time, and I just needed that incentive. And then I ended up reading 2 books, and only one of them was in my original tentative TBR, Heat Strokes by Kima B. This was for the Hidden Gems prompt, and it's about our main character who has just caught her boyfriend cheating on her, and she has a lot of trust issues as a result, and it's about her falling in love with someone new and fighting those trust issues. It's really fun. I do recommend it. It's also quite short. I believe it's 100-ish pages. So check it out if you're in for a steamy book featuring a fat main character. And then the second book that I read, it was for the prompt of Fat Does Not Mean Ugly, and I read The Do's and Donuts of Love by Adiba Jaigirdar. This is about a reality competition series a la Great British Bake Off, but it's set in Ireland and it's with teenagers, and it's a second chance romance, and it's just so fun. I love that there's talks about trust issues, racism, what is and isn't real about reality TV. It is so freaking good, and it is so foodie. It'll make you hungry AF. The next reading project I took on was the week of graphic novels. This one is hosted by my friend Karen over at the Audiobook Aficionado on YouTube and Marion K on Twitter. This was the week of July 16th to the 23rd, and there were 8 prompts. By the way, Karen, if you're watching this, I love the graphic that you made. I am so sorry that I wasn't more active. I always try to be more active in readathons where my friends are, hosting, but I was going through it. So for this one, I actually built a TBR and follow through with most of it. As you can see, I have Our Work is Everywhere for the Nonfiction Challenge, Wash Day Diaries for the author and illustrator RPOC, Anne of Green Gables for the read from at least 2 different age ranges, Monstrous Volume 1 for the Out of This World prompt, The Vein for the color of your birth tone on the cover, Stage Dreams for the LGBTQIAP+ protagonist, and A Game for Swallows for the non-digital and translated challenges. For this one, I am very proud to say that I read most of the books on my TBR. I read Our Work is Everywhere, which was edited by Cian Rose, which is a compilation by queer artists and queer activists. You should absolutely read Our Work is Everywhere. It is so bold, so powerful, and just so incredibly timely. I also read Wash Day Diaries by Jamila Rouser and Robin Smith, a collection of short stories, and each of them focused on a different friend in the friend group. And the central theme is hair and hair care for Black women. It is fantastic. The color palette is absolutely stunning. I loved it so much. It is so pleasing to the eye, and it deals with mental health, relationships, the importance of friendship. It is fantastic. 1000% recommend. Go check it out immediately. Anne of Green Gables, which is a children's classic. It's about Anne, who is an orphan, and she goes to live with this older couple, and it's about them raising her, and it's about her sort of adapting to, society in the 1900s. I believe the original novel was published in 1908, and this is the graphic novel adaptation of it. It was so freaking good. I was so moved by reading this. It was just really, really lovely, very, very wholesome, really heartwarming. I've been told multiple times to watch the show, the Netflix show, And with an E, and I am really scared to start it because I know it got canceled after season 3 and everybody was disappointed, and I don't want to go through that kind of loss, but maybe it's worth it. The next book that I read was Monstrous. This one's by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, and it is like an alternate universe, steampunky setting in China, and it's about like monster and human hybrids. I don't know how to explain it, but imagine Sweet Tooth, the show on Netflix, but like way darker and way more violent, and it's with adults, obviously. It was so freaking good. It was jarring. It was kind of hard to read at times just because of all the shit that the character had to deal with. And I know it gets no easier after volume 1, but I'm really, really curious to see where the story is going. Next up, I read Stage Dreams, which is a historical fiction graphic novel about these like bandit. She's just like a train robber, and she captures this girl and she's holding her for ransom, and she's like, well, joke's on you, because nobody's actually gonna look for me, like nobody cares about me. And it's about them falling in love and finding acceptance. It's about transness. It's a really, really solid story. The last book on my TBR that I read for the week of graphic novels was A Game for Swallows by Zaina Abirahed. This is a graphic memoir. It takes place in one day, where the parents of the author leave the kids in their apartment as they go to the grandmother's house, and they can't make their way back. It's very, very dangerous for them to leave. It is this extremely like claustrophobic artwork where you can only see and picture yourself in that house, in that living room, in that room where they're meant to be safe. And it's about their interactions with their neighbors. It's about how they've tried to keep each other safe throughout the war. It's about loss. It's about humanity. It's about community. It is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. And then I got through an entire series, a 3-book series. I picked up these series because Whitney from Witty Novels was talking about them. I believe it was a video about her defending books that she has loved that have a low star rating on Goodreads, and Snot Girl was a part of it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna check it out. And it is so fun. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's about this like early influencer. She's a blogger. It's about her journey into like, you know, wanting views and befriending the hot popular girl, it girl around. And it's about how that kind of fucks her up a little bit. And I don't know how to describe it. It's just like really fun, ridiculous, sort of campy, very intentionally campy. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. If you like ridiculous stuff that deals with internet fame and messy characters, definitely check this one out. Next up, I want to talk about Latinx Book Bingo, because this is my readathon along with Candace and Sophie's as well. We had a bunch of different prompts. I'm not even gonna get into it. Here's the graphic. I don't have a TBR. I didn't have a TBR because I didn't care to make one, because I just knew by that point, I knew that if I built a TBR, I would absolutely fail. My hopeful was Incendiary and Illusionary by Zoraida Cordova, but that did not happen. Don't ask me why. Once again, I have no idea. And I ended up starting a bunch of books, Incendiary being one of them. I also started 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Agustina Basterrica, which is a collection of short stories in the horror genre. The author is Argentinian, and I was trying to read an Argentinian book and a Colombian book. That did not happen. I also started Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo because Sophie told me to. Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas because it was the group book. And Valentina Salazar is Not a Monster Hunter by Zoraida Cordova because Cande told me to. Unfortunately, I only managed to finish 2 books. The first one was Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This is a historical fiction paranormal romance book, and it's set during the Mexican-American War. It is so eerie, so creepy. Every time I felt like my eyes were shut because the ambience is so dark. Again, highly recommend this book. I also read Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. I got this one on audio. Again, shout out to Libro FM. Oh, actually, I read these 2 books because of Libro FM. So shout out to them. Again, link in the description below. And this is a magical realism story about a family where the women have special powers, special abilities. And it's about family most of all. It's about relationships like husbands, wives, mothers, daughters. It's about sisterhood. By now, everybody should have read at least one book by Elizabeth Acevedo, and if you haven't, please check this one out. You will not regret it. And finally, in the last 2 months, I had a hopeful challenge. The goal was not to read every single one of these books that you are seeing on screen, but I did want to get to like at least 10 of them because I had the audiobook for quite a few of them actually. The prompts were based off of the Buzzwordathon reading challenge hosted by Lala over at Books and Lala, link in the description below, and the Novel Tindy 2023 reading challenge. I ended up reading a whooping 8 books out of the 24 that I wanted to read. I got to 8 and I was extremely proud of myself. Thank you very much. The first book that I finished, or the first book that I want to talk about, The Babysitter Lives by Stephen Graham Jones. This was my first Stephen Graham Jones and it is audio exclusive. It's about a babysitter who goes to take care of some kids for the night. It is so eerie. I'm not even joking. I was listening to it while lying in bed and then my grandpa knocked the door and I got the living daylights scared out of me. Next up, I want to talk about Secret Santa Baby by Robin Covington. This one fit into the Secrets Challenge for Buzzwordathon and for the Winterfields for Novel Tindy. It's a workplace romance and it's about two people who have had feelings for each other for a really long time, but they just can't bring themselves to confess that to each other. Next up, I want to talk about Love Pamela by Pamela Anderson. This one fit into the challenge of emotions. This is a memoir by Pamela Anderson. I got into a habit of reading memoirs by famous people who have been notoriously mistreated, like Pamela Anderson. I also read Britney Spears' memoir and I also read Constance Wu's memoir. Yeah, it's very sentimental, very raw, very emotional. If you're not that much interested in Pamela Anderson, that you don't want to read her book but you're still nosy enough, you could just watch her Netflix documentary. Next up, we have Salt the Water by Candice Elo. It is a novel in verse and it's about Cerulean, a genderqueer teen who is having a really tough time at school, so much so that they just want to quit, they want to drop out. And it's about dreaming, it's about hoping, it's about how the odds are stacked up against people like Cerulean, as in trans, as in black. It was breathtaking. I need everybody who's watching this video to read Salt the Water. It was phenomenal. Oh, I also read Yellowface. This one was so much fun. It is by Rebecca F. Kwang. It's about Juniper, who has her best friend or one of her best friends die, and she basically takes her unfinished manuscript and she starts to edit it and tweak it and she claims it as her own, diving into this marketing of herself as a racially ambiguous person. And I think what I loved most about this book was the writing style. I loved that you can sort of get the idea that she's basically writing like a confessional blog post and it's about her like teasing to take off the mask of who she truly is, and by that I mean like a bigot. I don't know, I found it incredibly entertaining. I know a lot of people have criticized it and for a good reason. I never think books are above criticism no matter who wrote them. I really like the lightheartedness of it. It almost makes it more impactful in my opinion. I don't know, I think of Yellowface the way that I think about Heathers, more specifically the song in the UK musical called You're Welcome, where you get to see through humor just how fucked up people can be. And by that I mean Juniper and the characters in Heathers, not necessarily the author, not necessarily the audience, not necessarily the publishing industry as a whole, but just the individual who is obviously part of a larger system. How to Be a Good Savage and Other Poems by Miquea Sanchez. It is a trilingual poetry collection. So it's in Zoque, an indigenous language in Chiapas, Mexico, Spanish, and those two versions are read by the author, and there's the translation in English, and the poems are read by the translators themselves, Wendy Call and Shook. And this was so so freaking powerful. Visceral is the word that I would use to describe it. Is the best. And the last two books that I want to talk about are Shadow and Bone and Season Storm by the one and only Leigh Bardugo. I read these books because Netflix finally let us know that they canceled the show, and that was very sad for me. I was sort of expecting it, but I was hoping that it would not be true. I was hoping that they would renew it for a third season, because I know that they had a lot of fun in season 2. I know from people that have read the books that they just went ham on the storylines. They combined a lot of books into that season for God knows what, but I was very, very excited to see where they would take the characters. Obviously, that did not happen, so I felt like it was my duty to read the Grishaverse, and I got to 2 books. I have them somewhere. I don't know where I left them. As you can see, I annotated the living hell out of it. I do have a key. Let's see. Let me show you. This is so fun for me. I never used to annotate books, and now I'm like very, very passionate about it. So we have the Grisha, the lore and history of Ravka, the quotes, the locations, and Malina, because I am a Malina stan. I love them so much. And then for these ones, so we have lore and history, quotes, the Darkling, locations, and Malina. And yeah, I still love Mal. I know by now why a lot of people hate Mal, but I still love him to pieces. I think he's a teenager. I think he's in pain. I think he deserves more empathy than what he gets. And I love him so much. I also love Alina so much. Oh my God. This book in particular was such hard hitting for survivors of grooming and abuse. I like Leigh Bardugo. Oh my God. You are a genius. Oh, I forgot to tell you what these books are about. Oops. In Shadow and Bone, we follow Alina, who realizes she can summon the sun, and she is like on a mission to save Ravka. That's basically it, right? Is that how I'm supposed to describe it? I've been talking for a really long time, and I don't know how to describe books anymore. But it's YA, it's fantasy. It is the kickoff into the Grishaverse, and I just really, really wanted to see where it all started. I know a lot of people prefer the Six of Crows duology, but I love Mal and I love Alina so freaking much. And I also wanted to understand the Darkling stance, most importantly the Darklina shippers. So far I don't understand them. I understand the love for him as a villain. I don't completely understand why people ship him with Alina, but that's fandom for you. So yeah, so those are all the reading projects that I had in 2023. Thank you for sticking around. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, if you think there's an author that I should check out more books from. So yeah, shout out to you for sticking around this unreliable channel. I promise I'm trying to fix it. I'm just trying to not put too much pressure on myself. I'll see you in the next one.